Hello, dear friends. Today, the subject is President Biden's speech that he made on Afghanistan. With his announcement to complete the withdrawal from Afghanistan by end of August, President Biden drew very clear lines. We are ending America's longest war ever. I'm not ready to send another generation into a country which has been in conflict for decades and which has never been ever united in history. There are very critical, telling takeaways from President Biden's speech. He literally dumped and denounced the idea of nation building, a notion which had accompanied the US invasion of Afghanistan in October 2001 as part of the Operation Enduring Freedom. Biden emphatically refused to accept the responsibility for civilian casualties in case a civil war erupts after the US withdrawal from Afghanistan.
No, no, no. It's up to the people of Afghanistan to decide on what government they want, not us to impose the government on them. No country's ever been able to do that. Keep in mind, as a student of history, as I'm sure you are, never has Afghanistan been a united country. Not in all of its history. Not in all of its history.
Secondly, the US President made it clear that bringing peace to Afghanistan is the sole responsibility of the Afghan leadership. The government shall have to find a way as to how to handle a militarily ascendant Taliban.
The Afghan government and leadership has to come together. They clearly have the capacity to sustain the government in place. The question is, will they generate the kind of cohesion to do it? It's not a question of whether they have the capacity. They have the capacity. They have the forces. They have the equipment. The question is, will they do it? And I want to make clear what I made clear to Ghani, that we are not going to walk away and not sustain their ability to maintain that force. We are. We're going to also work to make sure we help them in terms of everything from food necessities and other things in the region. But there is not a conclusion that, in fact, they cannot defeat the Taliban. I believe the only way there's going to be, this is now Joe Biden, not the intelligence community, the only way there's ultimately going to be peace and security in Afghanistan is that they work out a modus vivendi with the Taliban and they make a judgment as to how they can make peace. And the likelihood there's going to be one unified government in Afghanistan controlling the whole country is highly unlikely.
Thirdly, Taliban have never been militarily stronger as they are today, reflected very much in the ground realities. They have captured nearly 200 districts. They have also seized a number of areas, border areas close to Uzbekistan, Turkmenistan, and Tajikistan, making it quite intriguing as well as terrifying for the Afghan government forces. Now, when President Biden spoke of the ground realities, does it mean an endorsement of Taliban's recent military victories? Something that had probably been also welcomed by the Russians, by the Chinese, and by the Iranians. All three countries have been welcoming Taliban delegations into their capitals. The Russians very recently also played down the Taliban military victories as part of their spring and summer offensive. So, what is cooking up in Afghanistan? Did the American negotiators basically tacitly agreed with the Taliban that they can go on a rampage, capture territories, and the Americans as well as other foreign troops will look the other way? The fourth point that President Biden's speech carried was the US had to honor the Doha deal with the Taliban, signed in February 2020, because this was his argument. Following the deal, the Taliban stopped attacking the American forces. Had I not done this, the Taliban would have resumed attacks on us. I'm not ready to offer any more lives for an endless war. This is what Biden messaged to all Afghan stakeholders. The American president essentially urged the Afghan leadership to find an inclusive, mutually convenient solution to the current conflict in Afghanistan. Whatever President Biden has said about the Taliban's military ascendancy is likely to build pressure on the Kabul government as well as on its allies in provincial capitals. Now, will the Afghan forces, which President Biden time and again alluded to as having a capacity to defend themselves, implode in the face of this psychological terror that is now arising because of the Taliban military march and capturing of territories? Or will they stand united and resilient to face the Taliban threat? If so, that would automatically mean more bloodshed in Afghanistan, more civil strife, and more instability. Why? Because the only exclusion to the peace process in Afghanistan is India. India, which has been diametrically opposed to the Taliban. It has been, together with the several Afghan officials, dubbing Taliban as terrorists. And it has never really been in unison with what the Taliban have been saying and what other regional countries like Russia, China, Pakistan, and Iran, plus Turkey, have been saying about the Taliban. They have all engaged with the Taliban, whereas India was the only exception. So, if India tries to prop up the Kabul government to counter the Taliban threat, what will it mean? Will it not mean more bloodshed? Will it not mean more hostilities playing out all over Afghanistan? So if that happens, that will be a big cost that the Afghan nation will be paying because of the reluctance and inability of several Afghan leaders to sit together and find a mutually convenient, peaceful way forward for the future of this country. This was the starkest and the most telling message that came from Biden's speech. That is, only the Afghans can themselves find a peaceful end to the decades-long conflict in Afghanistan if they hold the interests of Afghanistan and the 30 million people of Afghanistan dear to themselves.